Hi folks, welcome to Ironman Week 8. My name is Joel Thornton. I'm standing in for Pat Goodman this week. This week we're going to talk about the feet and the pathways that they take us down or hopefully don't. And it's going to be an exciting evening. Hope you're ready. Let's go. What he would like us to do to begin with is to spend a little time reviewing together. What was this last 7 weeks all about? What was the thing? Body language. Okay, yeah, let's not go there. Not that kind of body language. We're taking the body apart sort of piece by piece and looking at what the Bible has to say about the use of our bodies, what it's created for, how it best functions, all of the analogies. I mean, how many of you have been surprised at the number of things, the number of body parts that the Bible actually talks about? Anybody? Okay. Remember what parts we've done so far? The eyes. Okay. Talk to me a little bit more, or to each other, about the eyes. What's going on there?
They're the window to the soul.
All right, the window to the soul, meaning. Now unpack that a little bit further, Gabe. What do you mean, window to the soul?
I don't even know what I mean. I just repeated it because I heard it.
Anybody else? We'll do this like we do it at school. Can anybody else help Gabe out with what he really means to say? Eyes, window to the soul. What does that mean? What have you found out? Yeah, Sam?
Basically, with that, they again affects, eternally.
Yeah, what you see, what you continually look at, perceive, what you see will have an effect on you one way or the other, right? I don't mean for this to be like true confession time, but the guys around my table know this. A lot of you don't know this about me, but I had an uncle. He was a sweet man. Everybody loved him. I loved him, but he had one of the world's greatest collections of Playboy magazines. I think he had every single one from the first one published until my cousins and I actually found out where they were in the attic. And guess what we did as 6, 7, 8-year-old boys?
Read the articles.
We memorized. Yeah, we read every article, right? We read the articles first, right? And then, and only then, did we even remotely think about looking at any of the pictures, right? Wrong. So I got to start really early in life, really knowing and seeing some things about girls that you probably shouldn't have known and seen that early in life. And it truly had an effect on me. It wasn't until years after I even came to Christ that I was able to get a handle on that. What you see will have an effect on you. Take it from one who knows. All right, how about another body part? What else have we been talking about? I heard something. All right, the heart. Okay. What about the heart? Anybody? Any takeaways about the heart for anybody? You can look back in your notes. It's okay.
Well, it's everything. It takes in everything.
Yeah, it encompasses more than just what you think about. It's what you see. It's what you think. It's what you physically experience. What's going on around you, and out of the mouth comes what the heart speaks, right? And how many of you know people? People you work with, maybe neighbors or whatever, that when they speak, you know that heart is a little busted, right? A little out of place. Okay. How about another part?
Mouth.
The mouth, okay? Out of our mouth comes both, says James, blessing and cursing, right? And then what does he say in the next verse? And that ought not to be. Okay? We can use our mouths in tremendous ways. We can also use our mouths to beat people up pretty solidly. Okay? Okay? How about one more part? One more review part.
Brain.
Tony. Your brain. Okay? What about our brain? Does it have any place in this? I mean, isn't Christianity all about faith? And there are a lot of people in the world that think if you have faith, you need to put your brain away somewhere. You need to stop thinking. It's time for faith. We stop thinking. Nothing could be farther from the truth. The more you consider the way our bodies are made, the more I believe, obviously Pat believes, the more most Christian scholars would believe you're going to be drawn to your Creator and be totally convinced that He exists, right? So the brain has a part of this. Anybody got any thought stories? Tall tales, maybe? Okay, so we've been talking about body parts, the body language. Tonight we're going to talk about our feet. Okay? What do you think of when I say feet? Okay, yeah, our feet take us places, right? We use them as our means of locomotion to get somewhere. Okay.
Path.
Yeah, I missed that one.
Path or trail. Path.
Yeah, yeah. I gotta get closer. My ringing in my ears gets really loud when I'm nervous.
Halfway trail.
Yeah. Keep going. Any other feet stuff? I mean, I do a lot of coaching at the school that I teach at, and when I think of feet, I think smelly feet. Socks left, unwashed for days, weeks on end, or whatever. Okay. There's
Athletics.
Oh yeah, quick feet.
The coach is always looking for athletes with quick feet.
Yeah.
And if you're a college coach, don't ever bring your head coach a recruit who has flat feet because he can't run. You won't win many games.
Right.
Look for the toes going down the yard, slightly in.
Yeah, feet can be sort of flat-footed and stagnant. They can also be really agile, right? And wouldn't it be nice if we could be really agile in our spiritual lives? Okay? That we can move quickly from one thing to another, not intimidated by necessarily the size of the problem in front of us or whatever. Yeah, Joel.
Or it could also be, like what the Bible refers to, is like running a race. There's a lot of analogies, towards that, running the race of Christ and keep moving, just like what Goody does. He runs a lot of races too.
Yeah, it's funny you bring that up because I don't run a lot. I actually have had serious bouts with what they call plantar fasciitis, okay, which is problem at the bottom of the foot, and it really hurts. Okay, so I had to give up running, so I took up hiking. Okay, which actually helps. But even when you hike, you have to train your feet. Okay, you don't want to go out on a 30 or 40 mile hike without having practiced a little bit first and worn up some calluses on the right parts of your feet. You want to change your socks frequently when you do that. Feet take care, right? Care and prevention, if you want to call it that. You have to take care of them. They're what holds you up. Anybody ever broken a foot or a leg, been on crutches or in one of those boots for a while? Okay, it's not an easy feeling, right? It disrupts your whole life. Yeah, you can't, well, if it's the right foot or whatever, you can't drive, can't necessarily get around, your balance is thrown off, and crutches are really cumbersome. You know, they slow you down a lot. So, you know, our feet are probably maybe even more important than we realize until we lose use of them. Okay, we don't think about them much. Just like maybe we don't think about the connection between our eyes and the rest of our lives and so on. But it's there. Pat's got a few here fun foot facts to take a look at. 26 bones in your foot, 33 ligaments in your foot, 100 tendons, muscles, and ligaments all coming together in one place. Midday is the best time to buy shoes.
Tell my wife that.
Well, you know, if you think about it, you know, your feet do swell over the course of the day, right? You're putting wear and tear on them and so on. You may accumulate fluid. You know, everything, gravity goes down, right? Everything goes that way. So if you're buying shoes, you don't want to buy when your feet are the smallest or the biggest, right? You want to buy them when your feet are sort of medium size. 5 to 6 months to grow a new toenail. Anybody ever lost one? Man, that is just no fun at all. And they never come back. You never notice they never come back the same shape? They're always a little bit different. I think there's a biblical lesson to be learned there. You know, you can. When things get fixed, like when you fix a problem, it's still never as good as the way you were originally created. You know, and it's great that we can fix some things, and lots of people get fixed, and you know, the Lord be praised. You know, God be praised that happens, and we have good counselors and people like that. But you know, it's just never quite the same as it could have been, should have been. All right, everyone. For Table Talk number 1 tonight, we're going to look at some verses from the Old Testament that deal with the topic of the feet. There'll be some verses projected on the screen. Take a look, read through them yourselves, and see what you find. All right, guys. Well, let's pull it back in for a few minutes. And it didn't take me long to figure out where he was going with this when I started to review these. All of these verses seem to have a common thread. What's going on here? What did you pull from this collection of verses?
Stay on the path if you're going in the right direction.
Yeah, they all talk about your feet being on a path, either a good one or a not so good one, right? The way of wisdom or the way of foolishness and folly, all right? What else? Any other things you pulled out of there?
If you want to be wise, if you want to have the edge on people you're competing against, you'll be a good listener. You'll take coaching.
Yeah,
If you don't, you won't listen. You just try to do things your own way.
Yeah, we were talking over here for a minute. You know, if you take that path of foolishness or lack of wisdom or whatever, you might have plenty of company. There might be a lot of people there with you, but guess what? You're all lost. You know, you might be together, but you're all not going anywhere real fast. So yeah, listen to the wise, follow the path of the wise. You know, pay attention.
Hey, be conscious of the path you're on. Be conscious of where your feet are at, where they're going.
Yeah, I mean, think about it. And I like the one, the one verse that was calling us to look. Okay, when are you more likely to just run into trouble? If you're walking while you're looking down at your feet, right? Or if you're actually looking up at where you're going. I've taught 4 kids how to drive, okay? And you know, you constantly have to tell them, and they've all done really well too. And not just because I'm their dad or I was their driving teacher, but we kind of beaten the averages. Something like 1 out of every 2 adolescent drivers has an accident before they're 18 or before they're 21. They've done pretty well, but one of the things I constantly had to tell them is don't look down at the instruments and at the steering wheel and at your hands and at your feet. I mean, that's what you're doing. That's to manipulate the car, but you have to look up and look out at where you're going. Okay, keep it between the curbs. Or keep it between the lines. And you can't do that if you're focused in, like, on yourself and all the mechanics of what you're doing. Okay, keep going. Any other things you gleaned from all of this?
If you can find that person in your life who is a mentor to you, be like Jesus was, you will be successful. You will have a happy, successful life.
Yeah, it's interesting, and the Proverbs talk about the evil way, or the way that lacks wisdom, being a woman who calls to you, okay, and entices you, okay. Of course, it's written from a man's perspective to his son. In that portion of the Proverbs. And don't be drawn that way. Be drawn to the way of wisdom, okay? Which may not be the most fun, but it certainly is the right way. And who is really the way ultimately? Jesus. But isn't it great that He puts so many other people around us? Like you were saying, Jeff, that find that one person. And, and for many of us, that can be our spouse. But for some of us, no, that's not there. But how many of you have that friend, have that person in your life? And Pat has said this many times, that you can pick up the phone any time of day or night. And they're going to tell you, whoa, wait a minute, your feet are taking you a place where they ought not to go. You're going to get tripped up here. I love the one verse in this group that talked about stumbling in the darkness. Okay? And you need that light to illuminate those boulders that you're going to trip over and, break that foot or injure yourself. I said earlier that I've done some hiking. One of the things that I did recently is what they call the HAM, the hike across Maryland. And here's the premise of it. There are 42 miles of Appalachian Trail between the Pennsylvania border and the West Virginia border, okay? And you hike that all in one day, okay? And it's grueling. And they make you sign an agreement before you do this that you will train for it. If you showed up to do this without having worked out a little bit, worked on your feet a little bit, worked on your wind a little bit, you would not succeed. They have checkpoints all along the way so that you don't fall behind the pace. They don't want you stuck out there in the darkness, stumbling along because you didn't keep up. And they'll pull you off the trail if you don't make each checkpoint by the desired, optimum time. There are blazes all along that trail. Okay? There are little paint marks on the trees, on the rocks. They're the markers. Okay? They're there to keep you on the wise trail, right? The marked trail. You want to follow them. You don't want to get lost. Not only would you be wasting time and walking farther than you need to walk, but there are some actual pretty steep drop-offs and dangerous places along there. And you're moving fast because you've got to do this between sunup and sundown. They do this on the first Saturday in May in every odd-numbered year. So if you want to join me next time in 2019, you can look it up. It's the HAM, H-A-M, Hike Across Maryland. If you Google it, you'll find the information about it. But it's number one, important to stay on the trail, and number two, to do it with someone else. You have no idea how hard it is to spend 14, 15, 16 hours walking by yourself. Okay? I actually did that. It was not fun. Both of my training partners injured themselves within a week of the event, and fortunately, one of them took the entire day to follow the route. And at each point where you can actually get close enough to the trail, he was there to encourage me. He realized how hard it was going to be. And there was at one point where I was just about ready to quit. But I didn't, because he was there. He encouraged me. Come on, you can do this. And the feeling when you finish, when you triumphed, is one thing. But the feeling of having done it with someone else's help is even better. All right, Paul, I think we're ready for that next clip.
Down the Via Dolorosa in Jerusalem that day, the soldiers tried to clear the narrow street, but the crowd pressed in to see the man condemned to die on Calvary. He was bleeding from a beating, there were stripes upon his back, and he wore a crown of thorns upon his head, and he bore with every step the scorn of those who cried out for his death. Down the Via Dolorosa, called the way of suffering, like a lamb came the Messiah, Christ the King. But he chose to walk that road out of his love for you. allá en Jerusalén, los soldados le abrían paso a Jesús, mas la gente se acercaba para ver al que llevaba aquella cruz. Por la vía dolorosa, que es la vía del dolor, como oveja vino Cristo, Rey y Señor, y fue Él quien quiso ir por su amor, por ti, por la vía dolorosa al Calvario y a morir. The blood that would cleanse the souls of all men made its way to the heart of Jerusalem. Down the via dolorosa, all the way of suffering, like a lamb came the Messiah, Christ the King. But he chose to walk that road out of his love for you and me. Down the via dolorosa, all the way to
All right, second table talk this evening deals with the verses in John chapter 13, verses 1 through 17. I want you to look at those carefully and consider a couple of questions. One, why was Jesus washing his disciples' feet so significant, especially washing the feet of Judas? And number two, what is Jesus conveying to his disciples by doing this? All right, guys. What do you think? Why was Jesus washing his disciples' feet, including the feet of Judas, so significant? What'd you come up with? Tremendous example of serving others. We were thinking about it at our table, and you know how hypocritical it would be for Jesus, who's preached months earlier than that, love your enemies and do good to those who hate you and persecute you and turn the other cheek and all that, not to include Judas in this. He still loved him, even though he knew what he was going to do. Well, what about the other disciples? Why is it so significant that he's going to wash their feet?
He's bringing himself down from the teacher to the servant level, down from the teacher to a servant, down to the disciples went to dinner, one to be served, I think that right.
Well, I mean, it's certainly symbolic of the cleansing of our sin. That you're washing the dirt off the feet. But who would normally, you remember your Bible context, any of you? Who would normally have been doing that job?
The lowest servant.
Yeah, the lowest of the low of the servants in the household. The head butler's not going to wash your feet. He's going to pass that job on down to the next level, who is then probably going to pass it down to the next level. So it's probably the littlest, scrawniest, lowest servant guy or girl or whatever that's going to do all the foot washing. The one who's least. And what had Jesus been teaching them for 3 years? The one who's least in the kingdom of God is the greatest. All right, keep going. What else did you come out from these verses with?
The other thing is, Jesus was the ultimate coach. He was the ultimate player's player. He was the ultimate man. Somebody you want to emulate, because he led by example. He could have kicked those guys rear end at the foot of the cross and rode off into the sunset, but he didn't.
Yeah, called down legions of angels, right? But he didn't.
To save us, forgive our sins.
Yeah, and he's not going to ask his disciples to go anywhere he hasn't been. Okay? Did you get the context? Did you get the connection between the video clip and the washing of the feet yet? Did you figure it out?
It's all servant. His path was to serve us.
Yeah. He took a path. He put his feet on a path. In fact, there are scriptures that indicate that he knew this was going to happen well in advance, even months in advance. And there's even one verse that says he set his face toward Jerusalem, that he went down that path intentionally. Okay? And there is one connection. The biggest connection is this. What you saw in the video and the washing of the feet are separated by no more than 12 hours of time, of real time. Thursday at dinner time to Friday at noon. That's all the difference there was. He went from washing his disciples' feet to the cross in that amount of time. I'm just going to read this to you because I don't think I could put it in any better way than Pat does in his notes. We have been served by God to be servants of God. You know, that Romans 10:15 says, how beautiful are the feet of those who bring good news. Jesus told the disciples, what you've seen and heard in me, go and do likewise. Okay? He served them to show them what it was like, what it would be like, what the path would be like they were going to have to take to change the world, turn it upside down in a generation. But it doesn't stop there. Okay, we need to be the good news to the people who are around us, and we need to be servants who serve because we have been served in the greatest of all possible ways. I mean, you watch that clip and it just blows your mind. And if you read the gospel accounts, I'm not even sure that the Passion of the Christ even does the brutality justice. Okay, that Christ went through. We've been served in that way so that we can be a service and a servant to others and to Christ. But we don't do that. You can write these down and look at them later, but if you want to. But 2 Samuel 22:34, Psalm 18:33, and Habakkuk 3:19 all say the same thing. Want me to do them again? Okay. 2 Samuel 22:34, Psalm 18:33, and Habakkuk 3:19 all say the same thing. And it basically goes like this in each of those three cases. He makes my feet to be like hinds feet, or the feet of a deer, on high places. We don't get to that place of servanthood. We don't get to that place of sacrifice. We don't get to that place of following Him down that path. He sustains us there. He puts us there. And He's there, just like my buddy was, walking with us down that path. That's the amazing part. It's not about us. It's not, look at me, what a great servant I am. I love that phrase about breaking your arm, patting yourself on the back. That's just an incredible thing to think about. He doesn't ask us to do anything He didn't do, and He's right there in it with us. Right? As we walk with Christ, He's going to lead us. Again, this is Pat talking. As we walk with Christ, He will lead us down good paths, both internally and externally, as He continues to place all of His enemies under His feet. That's already been done. The victory's already been won. We just get to share in the cleanup operations. Okay? A little bit like his analogy of D-Day and V-Day. The war was really over, was really won on D-Day, but it took another 12 months of fighting and dying and sacrificing and serving to actually see the victory out. All right, he would like you guys to take a few minutes and gather your thoughts and share some takeaways from the session. What have you gotten out of the last 7 weeks? What do you feel like you're walking away with? Well, get it walking on your feet, walking away with.
Last night we had a knock on the door, and it was well past dark. And there were these three teenagers. Well, teenagers on down, not really sure. They're cold, they're wet, and they said, we're lost. Because we live right next to a park. Well, so the parents said, go on down that trail. We'll meet you in a few minutes, and then we'll hook up. Well, apparently they didn't stay put, and they started walking around. Well, it was pitch black. The parents couldn't find the kids. So they finally got connected on the cell phone and said, find a light of a house and walk to that house. I'll meet you there. Then his phone goes dead. So how is he going to know what house it is? So the kids made it to our house, and he grabbed somebody at the shopping center and said, I need to borrow your phone. He was doing everything he could to find his children, and the mother too. But what was interesting, they did find us. We all met together. They were eating peanut butter and jelly sandwiches and whatever, and the wife just broke down. My wife put her arms around her and said, Jesus led them here. So you get off the path, and Jesus will still find you. I was just amazed by those words, and she must have cried for about 5 minutes because her 3 children were back to her.
You can't hide from Him, can you? And that's a tremendous act of servanthood. You could have said anything to that kid, right, at that point in time, but you let him know that Jesus is looking for him, you know, and isn't going to let go of him. Any other takeaways? Any other things that you are going to move into the next session with?
Just how important it is to train your heart. There's so many things, whether it's your mouth, eyes, all other things we learned about, all starts at the heart. Training your heart will help you lead you down the right path.
Yeah, take it seriously, right? I mean, I think that's what I hear you saying. I mean, you know, your body's an amazing machine, but care for it. And not just physically. I mean, Jeff, you know, I mean, you can be in great physical shape and there's a lot of stuff you can do to get yourself there. But what about on the inside? You gotta work out and, you know, pump iron, so to speak, just as much on the spiritual side of things as on the physical side.
I think going back to where we were talking about the eyes and how many things we notice, like 50,000 things a second or something that our eyes are taking in, and how that, you know, may or may not impact us. But it's really what we choose to focus on, what we elect to take in, and that's what affects what goes to our heart. You know? So if you choose to see the bad stuff, that's the stuff that gets through. You know, if you choose not to see that, you focus on the good stuff. That
yeah, it was interesting, and I think Shay mentioned this in one of his recent sermons. Jesus is always described as fixing his eyes upon someone or looking at them before healing them, before speaking to them. You know, he always seems to be paying attention. And, you know, what great advice. You know, and there's another issue. The focus issue is really important. You know, focus on the good things or on the bad things. But what about those of us who have a little bit of, shall we say, ADHD? Okay, attention deficit disorder. Not physically, not you know, in the workings or our brain. You know, and I deal with kids like that in school all the time, and it really is a thing, okay? A lot of people, you know, want to sort of downplay that, oh, if the kid would just, you know, scrape himself together and, you know, buckle down, he could. It really is a thing. But we get that way spiritually too. We're going to like go from one thing to another. Our calendar has 1 million things on it, and we never really stop long enough. One of the things that we have actually learned from my wife being on the time that my wife has been on staff here. The staff here, did you know that they are required to take a certain period of time every month as a part of their job? It's that serious to the leadership of the church that they're willing to pay them a few bucks to be alone and set their focus, to be alone with God and really gather themselves spiritually. I think that's tremendous. Man, I wish the county would pay me for that once in a while. You know, to just collect myself and focus, because I'm here, there, everywhere. You know, one of the things that is really interesting about teaching is it's never about you. It's always about the 30 or 35 people you've got in front of you, and meeting everybody's needs is absolutely impossible, but you still try to do it because you're dedicated to what you do. You know, because they really certainly don't pay you enough, and you got into this business knowing they weren't going to pay you enough, so there must be some other reason. You're there serving kids, and it is a tough job. But you can't do everything well. You know, focus is a huge, huge thing. And the eyes, that's where it happens, or that's at least where it begins. Steve?
Joel, and kind of thinking through sort of all these
the different body parts we talked about, and think about just being intentional with how we become skilled at using all of them. And we put a lot of time into getting skilled, in different parts of our life, whether it's a hobby, that you work a lot at, you get really good at, or it's your job, it's a job-related skills that you do. Sports, certainly we've probably put time in with that. But like when you think about the training that we need to be intentional here in following Christ, and like considering, I can think of coaching little kids on how to throw a baseball, like going through do this, do this, do this, and think about how intentional have I been in speaking with my kids about, like, here's where your eyes need to go, here's where your feet are going to walk, here's the path you're going to take. Like, it's just all about being intentional about, like, making these decisions and taking the wisdom that we get.
Yeah, I love that word, and I've actually really been trying to use that as many times as I can per school day since, I don't know, probably during this session. Pat's been very clear about the whole intentionality part of this, and I think it's really actually beginning to sink in with some of my students. You're just not here taking up space and breathing air. And that's not why we're intent is so important. Well, we're at 8:30.
I was just going to say, in addition to what you and Steve just said, that's why we need to make a commitment to keep coming back. That's why I keep coming back, so we can learn more about how to be a better Christian man and leader in our family. I just wanted to say that.
Here. Amen to that, right? We're not in this alone. We shouldn't be in this alone. We should be walking this path, putting our feet on this path together. And this is a great way to do it. There are lots of other ways too. But here's the big finish. Our feet become His feet as we live our journey in Him. Not my words, Pat's. One last thing before we do our verse and do our announcements. What do you do when your feet are hurting you? We've all had that experience, or most of us, right? Your feet are hurting you. What do you do? Yeah. Soak them, right? Submerge them in something warm and therapeutic, right? So I won't tell you to go home and soak your head. I will tell you to go home and soak your feet. Immerse yourself in Christ. Immerse yourself in the Word, in prayer. When those feet start barking at you, when those feet start wanting to turn to the path they ought not to follow, we all get there. We all get in those places. Immerse yourself. Soak them. Soak those feet. So we're going to do our verse here, and then we're going to pack up, and we're going to set our feet on that straight path until April the 9th. In the same way, count yourselves dead to sin, but alive to God in Christ Jesus. Therefore, do not let sin reign in your mortal body, so that you obey its evil desires. Do not offer any part of yourself to sin as an instrument of wickedness, but rather offer yourselves to God as those who have been brought from death to life, and offer every part of yourself to Him as an instrument of righteousness. For sin shall no longer be your master, because you are not under law, but under grace. Amen.